welcome to another Warhammer 40,000 battle report brought to you by the Legion Wargaming. And as the Tau campaign has drawn to a close, we thought we would take a break and give two of the oldest adversaries on this channel a chance to once again have a crack at each other. The battle today is Astra Militarum versus Raven Guard Space Marines, 1,850 points, Eternal War mission, Crusade, with hammer and anvil deployment, and objectives have already been placed. The Astra Militarum will be deploying over on this side of the table, and we have one objective here in this ruin building and another objective by these Aegis defence lines. There are two more objectives. One is nearer to where the Raven Guard will be deploying, down this end in the corner of these walls, and the other is next to this pile of debris right back in the Raven Guard's deployment zone. We're looking forward to these two old adversaries having another crack at each other. Let's see what they've brought along. This 1,850 point Raven Guard list is a little different, because today the Ravens have decided to try out some of the formations more often used by their mustachioed brethren, the White Scars. So, we start with a Stormlance Battle Demi Company, led by a captain on a bike. He has artificer armour and a relic blade, and he has brought along with him 3 full-strength tactical squads, all in rhinos. 2 of these squads have melter and combi melter, and one has flamer and combi melter. He has also bought 3 bikers, 2 grav guns, and the sergeant has a combi grav and a full-strength devastator squad, who are also in a rhino, and they have 4 missile launchers. This formation allows all of these units to re-roll to hit in the shooting phase against enemy units that are controlling objectives, and it also allows all units to move d6 inches after they are fired in the shooting phase, and that includes re-embarking upon transports they have just disembarked from. And the bikers can move 2d6 after they fired. So, an interesting formation. Looking forward to seeing how it gets on. Now, also using a second White Scars formation, this is a spear tip strike and has 3 independent land speeders with heavy flamers and multi-melters, and 2 bike squads. The first has 2 melter guns and an attack bike with a multi-melter, and the second is just 5 bikers with no upgrades. These guys, they can use their fire to suppress the enemy. They can also try and provoke them into chasing them. Another very interesting formation. As these are not White Scars, they are Raven Guard, they can't use the full Scar Blade detachment, so this list is unbound. Continuing with the mechanised theme, the Ravens have brought along a line breaker squadron of 3 Vindicators and 2 independent Whirlwinds, always useful against Guardsmen. So, this could be quite an interesting list to use. Let's see what the Guardsmen have brought along. This 1,850 point Imperial Guard list is a single combined arms detachment, and like the Ravens, the Guardsmen have gone all mechanised. The detachment has as its HQ Commissar Yarrick. Good to see him again. We haven't seen him since our first ever Apocalypse game, and he has brought with him as the first troops choice a platoon of Armageddon Steel Legion. They are all in Chimeras, and they are led by a platoon command squad with 4 plasma guns and 3 infantry squads. Every one of these squads has a plasma gun and a missile launcher team. For the second troops choice, we have a squad of Cadian veterans. They have a demo charge, a heavy flamer and 2 grenade launchers, and they come in their own Chimera with a hull mounted heavy flamer. In elites, we have a squad of 5 Tempestus Scions with 2 plasma guns, and they will be riding in a Vendetta, which fills one fast attack slot, and the other is filled by the Guard's old favourite, the Vulture, with its twin-linked Punishers. Finally, in the 3 heavy support slots we have 3 Lehman Russ tanks. 2 of them have battle cannon, and we have a Lehman Russ Executioner that has plasma cannon sponsons as well. So this is quite a mobile and aggressive Imperial Guard list. Let's see if it can cope with an equally mobile and aggressive Raven Guard army. Going into deployment. And the armies have deployed, and we have been treated to the rare spectacle of an Imperial Guard army not deploying a single infantry model on the table. On their right flank, overseeing this objective, we have the 3 infantry squads from the Armageddon platoon inside their chimeras, and they are backed up by Yarrick and their platoon command squad in the final chimera, which is nestled behind the intimidated form of the Lehman Russ Executioner, which is hull down and has a great field of fire over the open ground in the centre of the table. The 2 Lehman Russes with battle cannon, trusting to the immense range of their weaponry, they are at the rear of the Imperial Guard line, and one of them is also holding one objective, and the Cadian veterans are on the far left flank. They're ready to motor to where they are most needed. And of course the Guard have both the Vendetta, carrying the Tempestus Scions, and the Vulture gunship in reserve. Meanwhile, the Ravens have absolutely packed their deployment zone. They have lots and lots of vehicles. We have 1 tactical squad looking to move forward, and to their left they have the captain, who's leading the bikers from the Stormlance. They're backed up by the Linebreaker squadron, and moving down the line we have another tactical squad in their Rhino, and the Devastators, who are still in their Rhino as part of the formation rules. Everybody must deploy in a transport. The Whirlwind is holding one objective, and then moving further down the line we have the Spear Tip Strike. We have the squad of 5 bikers, 1 land speeder, 2 land speeders, the other squad of bikes from the Spear Tip with their melters, and the final land speeder on the far left flank. We have another tactical squad from the Stormlance and the other Whirlwind. So the Ravens really have packed their deployment zone. All these vehicles take up so much room, and they have left nothing in reserve, but they do have a lot embarked upon transport vehicles. The Ravens deployed first, so unless the Astra Militarum can seize the initiative, we will be going into Raven Guard turn 1. End of Raven Guard turn 1 movement phase, and following the Guardsmen failing to seize the initiative, the Ravens have surged forward as quickly as they can. On the far right, one Rhino has moved cruising speed through these ruins, and the other Rhino with the bikes and the captain in between have done likewise. The Vindicators have shuffled forward slightly. The Whirlwinds at the back have held position. The Ravens are leaving control of this home objective too. Their heavy armour by the looks of it. The combat squad of Devastators with missile launchers have disembarked from their Rhino. The other combat squad has remained inside. They are hoping to fire some snapshots and then run up to the top of this gantry. Meanwhile, the Spear Tip Strike, they are all moving forward as quickly as possible. Their multi-melters are in range of the lead Chimera, but it's in cover and they're not in melter range. We'll see how they get on with that. And finally, over on the far left, the other Rhino is also moving up. The Ravens have begun this battle in very, very aggressive style. Let's see if they continue that in their first shooting phase. End of Raven Guard shooting phase turn 1, and this highly mobile army is almost on top of the Guardsmen already. The bikes from the spear tip strike moved flat out. They did lose one biker with a melter gun as he crashed into a wall, but don't forget these are Raven Guard bikers, so they do have shrouded in their first turn, which means they are being very aggressive. Meanwhile, the three land speeders from the spear tip, they opened up on the nearest Chimera. They managed to do one glancing hit, and the Chimera took a penetrating hit and is stunned as the Devastators quickly fired some snap shots with their missile launchers and then ran up to the top of the gantry using the Stormlance special rules. The Grav bikers with the captain, they had one biker in range and they have managed to immobilise the Leman Russ Executioner, although it's not looking very likely that it ever intended to move. And meanwhile the Rhinos continue to surge up the tactical squad, the Devastators and the tactical squad over on the far right flank. The Whirlwinds attempted to finish off the damaged Chimera, but their missiles could not penetrate its armour, and the Vindicators have held position now, forming a strong line around the objective in the Raven Guard's deployment zone. So there's no first blood for the Ravens, but they are looking to be extremely aggressive in this battle. With no assaults, let's see how the Astra Militarum respond in their first turn. End of Astra Militarum movement phase turn 1, and as we have seen many times before from the Guardsmen, they are happy where they are. They have not moved at all. They have lots of targets in range. They are happy to remain in their mobile pillboxes and fire from the top hatches. They're going to try and thin out the Space Marines before they commit themselves to advancing up the table, and they know that they have air support coming in from reserve, so they're going to see how much damage they can do, probably by attempting some easy first blood on some land speeders, going into Astra Militarum shooting phase turn 1. End of Astra Militarum shooting phase turn 1, and the Cadian veterans in their Chimera open fire upon the rapidly approaching Raven Guard Rhino. The multi-laser rebounded harmlessly from the Rhino's armour, but they did manage to do one glancing hit with a grenade launcher from the top hatch. The two Leman Russes, sighting the Devastators scurrying up the gantry, managed to land 2 battle cannon shells on them and take out 3 of them, but the remaining 2 Devastators have held morale. The Leman Russ Executioner was dreadful in its accuracy, but the one hit it did get with a plasma shot has managed to stun the tactical squad in their Rhino, moving across the open in the centre of the battlefield. Yarrick ordered the plasma gunners from his squad to bring down the bikers, but they only managed to shoot down 1 despite him giving them ignores cover, and meanwhile it took all 3 Chimeras to shoot down the wildly jinking Raven Guard land speeder on this flank, but at least that has secured first blood for the Imperial Guard. So not as much damage as the Guardsmen had hoped for, and they must be very worried that the Ravens are right on top of their position. Let's see if the Space Marines can capitalise on that going into Raven Guard turn 2. End of Raven Guard turn 2 movement phase, and the speed with which these Marines have hit the Imperial Guard's defensive line is something to behold. The spear tip strike, both bike squads and the land speeders are looking to crack open the Chimeras. Meanwhile, their brothers from the Stormlance are deploying from their Rhinos, ready to gun down any guardsmen that spill out. In the centre, one tactical squad with melters is looking to finish off the Executioner, and the captain and his retinue of Grav bikers are already pushing through the guard and into their back line to take on the Leman Russes. And on the far right flank, another tactical squad split into 2 combat squads has deployed. One with melters is looking to pop open the Cadian veterans' Chimera, while their brothers wait with their bolters ready to gun down the veterans as they spill out. So the Ravens really have surged up at the guard, but they are still forming quite a formidable backline. The two remaining Devastators have held position to give fire. The Vindicators have trundled up a little bit more, but they are still out of range. And the other combat squad of Devastators has actually moved back in their Rhino to make sure that this objective is under control, ready for the Imperial Guard reserves to arrive. Doubtless they will try something. Meanwhile, the two Whirlwinds have once again held position. It's not ideal for them, this battle, since the Guardsmen, at the current time at least, have not been prized out of their armoured vehicles. And let's see if that changes going into Raven Guard shooting phase, turn 2. End of Raven Guard shooting phase, turn 2, and it has been devastating. The Guardsmen are reeling. Starting over on the Raven Guard left flank, these bikers with their melter guns managed to wreck the Chimera. As its occupants came piling out, they were targeted by 3 tactical combat squads, 2 that have now re-embarked into this Rhino, and 1 from the centre that has re-embarked into their Rhino. So there's only 4 Guardsmen left, and this Chimera on the Guard's far right is also looking like it's not going to be around for very long. These bikers have already damaged it with a crack grenade, and they are going to charge it and try and finish it off. In the centre, the 2 land speeders from the spear tip, they managed to do 1 hull point to the central Chimera and also to shake it, and the 2 remaining Devastators from the gantry managed to do another hull point and immobilise it. A brief reprieve for the Guard as the combat squad in the centre failed to do any damage to the Executioner with their melters, but in a drive-by, the Captain's Grav bikers managed to do another immobilised result, which has destroyed it, and they have motored onwards towards the other Lehman Russes. And another devastating attack was launched by the Ravens on their right flank. 1 combat squad with melters blew up the Cadian Veterans Chimera, killing a lot of the veterans. And as the smoke cleared, the other combat squad gunned the survivors down, and they too have re-embarked upon their Rhino, and it is motoring towards this objective. So this really has put the Guard under immense pressure. The Raven line has hit them so quickly and destroyed so much, and the Vindicators and the Whirlwinds have still pretty much done nothing. But the Guard have some reserves. First, before we deal with any of that, we have 1 assault. Raven Guard assault phase, turn 2. End of Raven Guard assault phase, turn 2, and another reprieve for the beleaguered Imperial Guard. The bikers only managed to do 1 more hull point to this Chimera, but it is shaken now. So the Guard have a lot of problems to deal with. Let's see if their reserves turn up to help them at the start of Astra Militarum, turn 2. End of Astra Militarum movement phase, turn 2, and unfortunately for the Guardsmen, the Vulture has not turned up, but at least the Vendetta and the Tempesta Scions have arrived. It has come on in hover mode. The situation is desperate. It has deployed its elite stormtroopers as quickly as possible. They have plasma guns, and Yarrick has led the platoon command squad, which also have 4 plasma guns. They are going to try to catch the Raven Guard captain in a deadly crossfire. Meanwhile, the Lehman Russes, they are going to try and lob shells up the table just to try and eliminate the sheer number of Space Marine units pressing on their position. The Armageddon Steel Legion infantry squads have had no choice but to deploy. Their sergeants have commanded them to come spilling out and drive back the Space Marine bikers and land speeders with sheer weight of fire. But they have missile launchers, they have plasma guns, they may be able to do it. If the Guard can hold their objectives and get Slay the Warlord and First Blood, maybe they can claw their way back into this game. Let's see how they get on in their second shooting phase. End of Astra Militarum shooting phase, turn 2, and Yarrick ordered his command squad to bring those bikers down, and a hail of plasma erupted from the Guardsmen. They lost 2 plasma gunners, but they managed to shoot down all of the Grav bikers and wound the captain twice. This proved too good an opportunity. So Yarrick ordered the Chimera, the Russes and the newly arrived Scions to target the captain, but none of them managed to take his last wound. That could be a critical failure of fire from the Astra Militarum. The newly arrived Vendetta managed to stun this Rhino, but that's not a particularly effective result, and the massed fire of the Armageddon platoon managed to take out the attack bike and the biker sergeant from this squad, and 1 more biker from this other squad. But the spear tip strike is still all over the Armageddon platoon. This has been quite disappointing for the Guardsmen, mostly because the Raven Guard captain from the Stormlance Demi Company remains alive. And of course the Ravens are all over the Guardsmen, and doubtless will continue to be so going into Raven Guard turn 3. End of Raven Guard movement phase turn 3, and once again the Whirlwinds have held position, as have the Devastators on their gantry and the other combat squad of Devastators happily guarding this objective along with the Whirlwind. Meanwhile, the Linebreaker squadron has formed a wall of armour in the centre of the battlefield, and they are holding this objective now. Unfortunately they can't really fire because the Guard defensive line is overrun with their battle brothers. The bikers are closing in on the Guard's far right flank, and the 2 combat squads have once again jumped out of this Rhino. They have taken the objective here, and surely they are going to use their bolters to gun down the Steel Legion. That is, of course, if any survive, because the spear tip strike land speeders are zipping around with their heavy flamers. They are supported by the combat squad that have moved up to the first floor of this ruin. Perhaps they can start targeting Commissar Yarrick. Meanwhile, the Tempestus Scions have realised that they have entered a world of difficulty as a black armoured phalanx marches towards them. This Rhino has moved up, and the combat squad that was inside has got out, and both combat squads have got out of the stunned Rhino. At least one of them will be firing snapshots, so a bit of good news for the Guard. The problem the Guard have is, once all of these tactical marines have unloaded their bolters, they will, more than likely, hop back into their Rhinos, making this a very, very difficult situation for the Guard. And just to top it off, the captain, who miraculously survived, has swung round behind this Leman Russ, and he is going to test his relic blade on its rear armour. Things are looking grim from the Guard. Let's see just how grim in Raven Guard shooting phase turn 3. End of Raven Guard shooting phase turn 3, and this is rapidly turning into a mop-up operation. There are only 2 Guardsmen left from this squad, them having been targeted by the bike's twin-link bolters, and the bikes are going to charge them to finish them off. Meanwhile, these tactical marines gun down the central squad of Guard, and they have once again re-embarked into their Rhino holding this objective. These Guardsmen came under fire from the Landspeeder's heavy flamer and this tactical squad, and there's only 3 of them left as well. Meanwhile, we have 2 Rhinos over here. There's 15 marines in these 2 Rhinos. They gun down all of the Zions, and they have re-embarked once again. The Guard have all sorts of issues. There are still 30 Marines embarked on transports on this table, and the Guard are running out of men. This has been a brutal display from these formations. A couple of bright notes for the Guard is that the Raven Guard Devastators and Whirlwinds failed to finish off this Chimera, and the captain missed the rear of this Russ with his crack grenade, rolling a 1. But we have some assaults to go in. The captain and the bikers going into Raven Guard assault phase turn 3. End of Raven Guard assault phase turn 3, and good news for the Guard. The Raven Guard captain only managed to do 1 glance with his relic blade on the rear armour of this Leman Russ, but over on this flank, the bikers just ran down the last two guardsmen. They did not even need to attack with their bolt pistols, bringing Raven Guard turn 3 to an end, and the Ravens are currently holding 3 objectives and contesting another. The Guard did get first blood, but it is looking grim for the Astra Militarum. At least their Vulture may turn up going into Astra Militarum turn 3. End of Astra Militarum movement phase turn 3, and they are sticking with their plan. They are planning to hold the line, drive the Space Marines back, hold the 2 objectives that they started in control of, and win with first blood and slay the Warlord. So, all of the Chimeras have been ordered to shoot down the remaining land speeders. Yarrick sees them correctly as the biggest threat to his Leman Russ battle tanks. Meanwhile, the Vendetta has stayed hovering. He's going to try and pop one Rhino, and the Leman Russes, one of which has rumbled away from the captain, are going to try to blow the Marines to bits if they come spilling out. Yarrick himself is determined that the Raven Guard captain on his bike will die. He is leading his remaining plasma gunners from the command squad to take him down, and the Guard have also been bolstered by the arrival of the Vulture. Its twin-link Punishers are going to strafe whatever targets remain alive in these ruins. So the Guard are not out of it yet. Let's see how they get on in their 3rd shooting phase. End of Astra Militarum shooting phase turn 3, and it has been a good phase for the Guard, despite the remnants of the Armageddon Steel Legion platoons. Chimeras only managed to do 1 hull point on this land speeder. The other land speeder was absolutely blown to bits by the strafing Vulture, and Yarrick, having personally directed the fire of the plasma gunners, was pleased to see the Raven Guard captain immolated. And a good result for the Guard on their left flank. The Vendetta blew up the Rhino, and as the 2 tactical combat squads came piling out, the Leman Russes opened fire with their devastating weaponry, and there are a lot less Marines on this flank now. But it does still look like the Ravens have a lot more left on the table than the Astra Militarum. Let's see what they can do with it in Raven Guard turn 4. End of Raven Guard movement phase turn 4, and the one remaining biker with a melter gun and the land speeder have been ordered to take out this badly damaged Chimera over on this flank. Meanwhile, these bikers have pulled back to make space for tactical squad that has once again disembarked from their Rhino. They, along with their brothers in the centre, have been ordered to pick their targets, eliminate them quickly, and then get back into their Rhinos, because the Linebreaker squadron is rumbling forwards. Following the death of the Raven Guard captain, they now want to exterminate these guardsmen with a devastating volley from their demolisher cannons. Meanwhile, the survivors of the tactical squads behind these barricades, they are also going to try to shoot down Yarrick, and then they are going to run back to get out of potential blast radius. Could this be the death blow for the Imperial Guard army this turn? Let's see. Raven Guard shooting phase turn 4. End of Raven Guard shooting phase turn 4, and in a textbook display of tactical coordination, all of the tactical Marines gunned down the entire Steel Legion platoon and then re-embarked on their Rhinos, as well as all of the infantry squads. They also cut down all of Yarrick's command squad and left him on 1 wound, and then the Vindicators unleashed their Linebreaker bombardment right into the heart of the Imperial Guard's position. The Chimera that was hit dead on was only shaken, but the other Chimera was destroyed The Lehman Russ, caught in the blast, exploded, and Yarrick is down. He was also very near the centre of that ferocious bombardment. Meanwhile, over on this flank, the land speeder and the bike easily managed to take out the last Chimera. So, Yarrick is alone, and he may be dead. We are not sure. In other news, the Devastators and the Whirlwinds once again achieve nothing. But the Guard really don't have much left now. Let's see if Yarrick can pull himself to his feet in Astra Militarum, turn 4. End of Astra Militarum movement phase, turn 4, and much to the relief of the Imperium in general, Yarrick has hauled himself to his feet. He is back up, and he has devised a plan. It's a long shot, but since when has that put off the indomitable Commissar? He and his shaken Chimera are going to attempt to retake this objective from 13 Marines and a Rhino, so bear with me, this is a long shot. Meanwhile, the Imperial Guard are the undisputed masters of air power in this battle, and they have decided to strike deep into the heart of the Raven Guard lines. If the Vendetta can pop the Devastator's Rhino, perhaps a long-range shot from the Russ's battle cannon can kill all of the Marines that come spilling out. And meanwhile, the Vulture can take out the Whirlwind, and that may allow these flyers to drop into hover, seize this objective, get line breaker. As I say, this is a long shot. Let's see how the Guard get on in Astra Militarum shooting phase, turn 4. End of Astra Militarum shooting phase, turn 4, and the plan fell down at the first hurdle as the Vendetta only managed to do one hull point and shake the Devastator still sitting in their Rhino. At least the Vulture absolutely annihilated one of the Whirlwinds with a volley from its twin-linked Punishers. Since these Devastators did not deploy from their Rhino, the Lehman Russ turned all of its heavy bolters onto the Marines behind these defence lines, but did no damage, and neither did the snap shooting Chimera. But Yarrick, he is going to continue with the plan solo if needs be. He is going to attempt to charge into this Rhino that is still full of tactical Marines. See if he can blow it up. Maybe he can take most of them down. Let's see in Astra Militarum assault phase, turn 4. End of Astra Militarum assault phase, turn 4, and although Yarrick made the charge, his mighty snapping power claw failed to make any impression on the Raven Guard Rhino. So nothing has come of the Commissar's plans at this end of the table. Could we be seeing the end of all Astra Militarum ground forces in Raven Guard, turn 5? End of Raven Guard movement phase, turn 5, and the Ravens are closing in on all remaining Imperial Guard ground targets. This Chimera is surrounded. There is still some of the spear tip strike remaining here, one with a melter and the multi-melter from the land speeder, and they are supported by 3 more bikes from the spear tip and 1 combat squad which has not used its combi melter yet this game. So this Chimera should go down. Meanwhile, the Rhino that Yarrick was attacking has moved up. 1 combat squad have got out to gun Yarrick down again, and the other squad still has their melter gun. They are going to start to try to take on this last Lehman Russ. Meanwhile, the other tactical squads, there's 2 squads there, 1 of 1, 1 of 2, they've moved down, they are getting ready to assault it with their crack grenades. But these squads need to be quick again to get back into their Rhino, because the line breakers are once again going to unleash devastation. 3 smaller shots this time to try and take out the Russ. The other combat squad is moving back to make sure that this objective is well and truly secure. So the Vindicator and they will be holding it, and in the meantime the last Whirlwind has not moved, doesn't really have any targets, and neither the Devastator combat squad in their Rhino, but they're doing a great job of holding this objective, and the Devastators may as well start trying to shoot down some of these marauding Imperial Guard aircraft. And let's see. Raven Guard shooting phase, turn 5. End of Raven Guard shooting phase, turn 5, and this Chimera must be well and truly dug in these ruins, because despite being targeted by the land speeder, the melter bike, the other bikes, and the tactical squad, which is now re-embarked on their Rhino, it did not lose a single hull point. Still going strong. Meanwhile, one tactical squad with their 5 bolters mowed Yarrick down. See if this is the end for the Commissar. They have got back on to their Rhino. Same as the squad that attempted to damage the Lehman Russ with their melter but failed. They have got back in. But the Linebreaker Squadron have managed to knock one hull point off of the Russ and stun it. Not very accurate, but at least the Demolisher shells scattered the right way, which is over here away from the tactical marines that are preparing to charge it. And as this combat squad runs to secure this objective, the Devastators thought they would have a go at the Vulture. It didn't bother to jink, and it didn't need to. Both of their missiles were a long way off target. Let's see if this Lehman Russ can be finished off in Raven Guard assault phase, turn 5. End of Raven Guard assault phase, turn 5, and although the 3 tactical marines from the 2 squads made it into the Lehman Russ, they failed to do any damage with their crack grenades, but at least now it's stunned, they'll have another go in the Imperial Guard assault phase. The melter biker thought that he might as well have a go at the back of this Chimera with his crack grenades as well, but he, like his brethren from the tactical squads, did nothing. So the Imperial Guard are virtually spent as a force. All they have are their flyers and possibly Yarrick, if he gets back up again. Let's see, going into Astra Militarum, turn 5. End of Astra Militarum movement phase, turn 5, and a sad day, the hero of Armageddon is no more. He has succumbed to many, many bolter wounds, but his very few remaining, well, just vehicles now, continue to fight on. This Chimera is going to try to combine its fire with the snap shooting Lehman Russ to somehow kill this Rhino and all of the tactical marines. Not likely, but it will mean that that Russ is holding the objective. And the flyers have both dropped down into hover mode at great personal risk to themselves. But if the Vendetta can take out the nearest Vindicator and the Vulture can blow away these tactical marines, then the Vulture will actually be holding this objective. And the Guard did get First Blood and Slay the Warlord. The Raven Guard only have Slay the Warlord, but they're probably going to get Linebreaker. The Guard could draw this against all odds. Let's see if they can. Going into Astra Militarum shooting phase, turn 5. And of Astra Militarum shooting phase, turn 5, and the Chimera did very well. Managed to destroy the Rhino, took 1 hull point with its multi-laser and 1 with its heavy bolters. But the snap shooting Lehman Russ tried to take down the tactical marines with its heavy bolters, but not a single marine fell. So disappointment there for the Guard, and a bit more disappointment here. The Vendetta only managed to do 2 hull points to the nearest Vindicator. It is shaken and it's had its storm bolter destroyed, but it is still contesting this objective with the Vulture, despite the Vulture blowing away 3 marines from a combat squad charging towards it. We have one ongoing assault as the stunned Russ could not move away. The Ravens need to take it out to make sure that they are in possession of this objective. Let's see if they can do it. Astra Militarum, assault phase, turn 5. End of Astra Militarum, assault phase, turn 5, and all 3 tactical marines managed to hit and penetrate with their crack grenades. So the last Russ is wrecked, and that brings the game to a close. The Raven Guard control 1 objective here, another objective, and all the way back in their own deployment zone here, giving them 9 points. They also managed to slay Commissar Yarrick for a point, and at the end of this game they have achieved Linebreaker with one of the spear tip land speeders. So they have 11 points. The Guard, despite a valiant effort, failed to secure this objective in the middle. It is contested, so they only got first blood and at least a measure of some pride. They managed to kill the Raven Guard captain and achieve slay the Warlord, but still means at the end of this game the score is 11 points to the Raven Guard, only 2 to the Astra Militarum. This has been a very fun game for the Raven Guard anyway. We really like these White Scars formations. Makes tactical marines so flexible, so quick, and they can protect themselves very easily. The Guard struggled right from the outset with how aggressive the Raven Guard were, but still a good game, still very fun, and we like these two old adversaries to meet again as soon as possible. Thanks very much for watching. Please subscribe to our channel and we will keep producing as many Warhammer 40,000 battle reports as we can. See ya!